and Growing, the podcast where we unpack strategies and stories that help you thrive in every area of life. I'm Wade Perry, and today's guest is someone you're definitely going to want to know, Alexandra Erlich, better known as your go-to credit girl. Alexandra is a credit strategist who helps people take back control of their financial future, especially during major life transitions like divorce, separation, launching a business, or just finally deciding it's time to stop avoiding their credit. Her work isn't just about boosting scores, it's about creating power, timing, and strategy so that credit becomes a tool, not a barrier, to the life that you really, really want. In this episode, we're going to dig into three powerful examples of how Alexandra's strategies have changed lives, bust a few credit myths, and share practical tips you can use right now to improve your financial foundation. I've known Alexandra for just about a decade, and she has truly worked miracles for dozens and dozens of people, just like you or someone you know out there. So, Alexandra, welcome to Green and Growing.
Thank you so much for having me, Wade. And I mean, is it really fair to date me that way and say that we've known each other as long as we have?
Well, time waits for no man or woman, and Father Time is undefeated. So I like to look at it this way, that it's been a privilege to know you for 10 years and learn about how you've helped people. And I'm looking forward to see what you do in the next 10 years, because I think the next 10 years is going to be even more critical for people to have great credit as our world keeps changing and shifting in today's geopolitical environment. And I think you probably agree.
I agree like a million times over. Not to mention, they say that 40 is the new 20. So, hey, I'm barely legal.
That's even better. So, before we get into some questions, I like to think, and I learned this a long, long time ago. I began my career in my early 20s working for an equipment finance company, and I started in the actually, I take that back. I started in the repo department, and I worked up to the credit department, reading
Wait, they go
TRW
hand in hand.
reports.
They
Yeah,
go
this was
hand in hand.
absolutely. And this was before Equifax. It was actually, we had TransUnion and TRW, and I think that was it. And the thing that I learned back then is that credit rating is a lot like reputation. You can do anything you want if you have a great credit rating and if you have a great reputation. And they're hard to build, but they're really quick to lose. And if you don't have great credit or if you have a bad reputation, it almost nothing will save you. And I think you'd probably agree that, if you don't have a great credit rating, it's tough to do the things that you really want.
I do. And I love that you kind of brought up the day and age that we're living in, because I will say, in this day and age, whether it's your reputation or whether it's your credit, the way that you can put a lens on it and manipulate it has just gradually changed so exponentially, where even if you have made those flukes or gone through those events, the way that you can doctor it up, put a filter on, put a lens on, and have it look really pretty if you simply know the rules of the game is amazing. That back in the day we couldn't do. Back in the day, rebuilding our reputation, rebuilding our credit, it was hard work. It was, we've got to do all these hundreds of things, and it's behind the scenes and it's snail mail. Yes, I still remember snail mail. However, these days we can do things like that. And no, I can't snap. But it can be done super quickly, because oftentimes, especially in this day and age, it's really about perception. How many times do we perceive that someone's reputation is much, much worse than it is? I'm not going to name names of any of the people we may have seen on YouTube or on a
Mm-mm.
jumbotron or anything else, but that may or may not be at all indicative of their actual reputation and the caliber of their integrity or who they are. Same thing with credit. Oftentimes, we'll see someone's score drop radically with no actual indication about their ability to repay. So, all we have to do is remember who's looking, where they're looking from, and what filter we want to put on it.
That is really, I tell you, you're right. It has changed dramatically from back in the day when you had to take small steps repeatedly for months, if not years, to repair. And if you had a bankruptcy, you weren't buying a house for 7 years, and that's no longer the case. So before we get into some of the case examples, you're known as the go-to credit girl. And can you explain what you actually do and why credit is more than just a number?
Yeah, I I have found that in my 30 years in finance, so many people are consumed, like just truly consumed with what is the number? What is the thing? And we as a society don't talk about goals. We don't talk about our intention. When I start talking to someone, the very first thing I ask out the gate, what is your goal? And they're like, an 850, a perfect credit score. I'm like, no, that's not your goal. That may or may not, in your opinion, be the byproduct that gets you your goal. But what is your goal? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, are you coming to me from a real estate professional? Are you coming to me from a mortgage professional? Are you coming to me from your CPA or your business advisor? Who gave you my number? Oh, well, actually, it was Wade. And I'm looking at buying my next home. I'm finally ready to upgrade. I'm finally ready to do all the things. The kids are getting bigger. We need more space. We want to get into a certain school district. I'm like, okay, those are your goals. So let's talk about the goals and what do the goals actually need as far as credit. People think that they know what they need to do or where they need to be, and oftentimes they don't. And this may be one of like those kind of dated, antiquated expressions. However, it's one that for me, with what I do, is the truest one I can possibly state. And that is if you start with the end in mind and you reverse engineer, it is so easy and efficient, let alone it always keeps you on track.
So just so I'm going to peel back the layers of the onion just a little bit and see if I've got this right. For ever and ever, amen, society has really kind of shifted our focus to what's your credit score? What's the number? What's the number? What's the number? And if I'm hearing you correctly, people will fixate on that number. And I need to do everything I can, move heaven and earth to get to 850, 820, whatever that number is, when in reality, the goal that they really want to achieve, home ownership, whatever it may be, maybe they don't need an 850. Maybe they can get there with a 750 and they could get there quicker with your guidance instead of being fixated on the societal goal, fixate on the actual goal of their life. Am I reading through that correctly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like, let's just use the biggest example in the mortgage world,
Okay.
FHA and V. Okay. Cool.
Hmm.
Guess what? These aren't your mother's and father's mortgages anymore. Back in the day, this was like considered the the redheaded stepchild of mortgage. It was like you
Hmm.
didn't do that. You only did that if you absolutely had to. In this day and age, that's almost considered to be the premier eminent, like perfect way to have any kind of financing. Let's leverage as much equity as possible. Let's keep as much liquidity as possible. And guess what? Here's the best part of it. There's almost no interest rate difference. And I mean, truly, almost none between a 580 and a 780 credit score. So if all we need to do to get in is get here, great. Let's get here and here and here for all the other reasons. Because we need a Home Depot credit card after we're in the house to fix it up. Because we now want to become an investor and we want to buy 3 rental properties. Because we need to buy a business that's already operating and we need business funding. Great. Let's get to each step, not only the most efficient and methodical way possible, but in the right order.
That is really, really good stuff. And I remember, and not that long ago, I mean, 12, 13 years ago. And if you were a listing agent and you received an offer from somebody that had FHA or VA financing, it was as if they were wearing the scarlet letter because the fear was, oh, it's a VA loan. You got a separate inspection. They're going to write up everything and you have to fix it all. Or if it was FHA, well, they don't have much money. I don't know if we want to go and take that offer. And you're right, it is not the same as it once was. And so, um, in terms of what you really do is help people understand what is the goal, and in order to achieve that goal, what credit score do we need to achieve? Not perfection, but what do we need in order to move the ball down the field so you obtain that goal? Correct?
Absolutely. And here, and I'm even going to play with your analogy. Here's what's also really important with that is we have to know which ball game we're playing and which goal we're going for. Are we
Mm,
playing are we playing European football? Are we playing American football? Are we playing some other completely random sport that still has a ball and a goal? Because there's over 70 different credit scores in existence. So which score do we even want to use based on the underwriting and the product that we're ultimately getting to?
interesting. Clearly, the world of credit has changed dramatically. And with that change, it basically is smart for somebody who, whether they are in a challenged position or they just want to know how do I maximize where I am and where I want to go, they need to be calling Alex Erlich to learn what game are we playing and how do I get there the best. It's no longer the same playbook for everybody that it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, right?
You keep making us so old.
Age is just a number, Alexandra. It's just a number. You got a number on your belt and your shoe. No one cares what those are. It's okay. Hey, let's dive
I
into
mean,
those. Go ahead.
you do pay more for my pants to say I'm smaller.
That's okay. Let's dive into some real life examples. So, walk us through how you've helped some people navigate a divorce to protect their credit and set themselves up for a fresh start. Because, and by the way, I've not been divorced. I've helped dozens and dozens and dozens of people sell property through a divorce. It's unfortunately a part of real estate, but I've never really dug into what are the credit ramifications of divorce. Is it an automatic hit to somebody's financial situation, or does it just depend on the individual? And how do they navigate a divorce to make sure they come out the other side in a great place?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack in that. And
Yep.
I think if we just kind of keep today at least really nice and major points to keep in mind,
Okay.
that's going to be for everyone's best interest. That way, it's going to be really consumable and allow everyone to win. Okay, and I'm trying to figure out why I've got pinging going on and what I'm supposed to do with it. Um, so, going into divorce, what are some of the challenges that we see? I think the first one comes into what else do we divorce in our life in today's day and age? Yes, most of the time it's our spouse, most of the time it's our partner. But oftentimes we're also divorcing a W 2 job. We're divorcing our family. We're divorcing a lifestyle or a just habit that we've been in for a long period of time. And I think that there's a value in just bringing this part of the conversation up to say, hey, we're not just talking about a marital divorce. We could be talking about all of these other lifestyle and life event divorces that can have impact on credit. I know for yourself, you've had some medical challenges. Cool. You
Yeah.
divorced a lot of habits as a result of that, and some of
Yep.
those could have had credit implications. So, for example, the major credit implications we don't talk about is what are we closing and why? And is the timing correct behind it? We always want to think about the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, right? That's in anything and everything. So, when it comes to what are we closing in divorce, if you Google it, the number one thing, the very first step that Google tells you when you're getting divorced is close all joint accounts. Well, wait a sec. If someone's like yourself and they've been married for 30 plus years, then what does that look like? That means maybe every single account we have is joint. So if we close everything we have that is joint, we've actually ghosted ourselves and taken over half of our potential score in effect away. We mathematically cannot be above a 620 in the mortgage world if we have no revolving accounts. And a revolving account by definition is going to be your credit cards, both store and major Visa, MasterCard, things like that. Also, checking, overdraft lines of credit, personal lines of credit, as well as sometimes home equity lines of credit. Now, the other part to that that's so huge is, think about it. What if your only checking account is the one you've had jointly, and your oldest, longest standing revolving account is that overdraft line of credit that's linked to the checking account? If we close
Mm,
all of these things, we just went from an 850 down to a 620 doing nothing. We didn't have a late payment. We didn't have anything derogatory. We weren't even vindictive. We both still like each other and we're willing to work through it. But we took almost every opportunity off the table. So, my very first recommendation in divorce, and one of the things I look at, is when we are doing this, day one, we freeze all joint accounts. We do not close them. Thing number two that I look at and can help people protect and establish is, at least here in Colorado, it's different in a couple states, but it is customary, the majority of the country here in the US, is that marital debt is done by a personal declaration. Okay, here's what I have, here's what you've got. Well, how is that fair? And if that personal financial affidavit isn't submitted until 6 months into the divorce, how much more debt can be incurred than was originally actual marital debt?
a
So, another
lot.
thing, yeah, another thing I establish is we include the actual credit reports for both parties day one, any additional debts that aren't visible there, so that we can establish and baseline what is marital debt, what should be shared, what shouldn't, and where any of this could get incurred in additional costs. Because
Okay.
that's another little stumbling block, so to speak, that people fall into. They end up putting all their attorney's fees, all this litigation, all this animosity on their credit cards. And they forget that their balance versus limit ratio on their credit cards, that takes 30% of their entire score. So even, let's just say hypothetically, they have no joint accounts, they don't close anything, great. They kept their length of history. But if they max out $150,000 in credit cards to pay for attorneys, and that's all the credit they've got on their personal line, then that could drop their score again back into that very low 600 number, which now makes everything that they're court ordered to do. You have to refinance the car, you have to refinance the house, you have to sell the house, you have to buy, you have to move. It makes all those things completely impossible, where you're in contempt of court before not only is the ink dry, but it's even put on paper.
You know, you just hit on something that you had taught me literally a decade ago. And it was an epiphany for me then. And I've actually put it into place with my own children. And it's not that you pay your bills on time. That is helpful, but that is not the end all of establishing a great credit score. It's actually one of the key components that you taught me was credit utilization rate. How much of your credit are you actually using? So I educated my kids. We got them, onto the Apple Card because I love that card. And I said, you're going to basically sign up for this card. You're going to pay it perfectly. You're going to use it and you're going to pay it off. And in a year, you're going to ask for a credit increase. You're going to then keep spending the way you did and you're going to keep paying it off. And a year later, you're going to ask for another credit increase. So as the credit limit increases, but your utilization, the bill doesn't change, the rate of utilization went from, say, 75% down to 25%, and their credit score went through the roof. So when you're talking about this divorced couple that is now going to pay for lawyers and they're maxing out their credit cards, sure, they're paying it on time, they're not overdrawn, they're not late, but their credit score goes down because their utilization rate skyrocketed. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. That is
Okay.
spot on. Let alone, we take that up a whole nother notch. And what happens if they're using the card to live on? What happens if the card is
Mm.
joint? What happens if the court order, because they don't have a me in their back pocket, says you can't open anything new during this process?
It would be smart to open some additional cards. You may or may not use them, but your utilization rate stays low.
And while your utilization rate is low, is when you can get those new cards. When we're
Right.
talking about anything in life, the most challenging of life events, the nastiest of life events, I've been through them all, whether it was my divorce or whether it was medical things for my kiddo or whether it was just being young and dumb, and even being through the financial rigmarole, we'll call it that to be politically correct, of '08. I think that the things that I can say and see, both from personal experience and in hindsight, is when you most need access to money is when you're least likely to get it. So you gave your kids the
Mm,
most perfect advice ever, which is just keep asking for it every year. Don't use it, don't whatever, just keep asking for it every year. And I actually tell people to do this on everything because people are like, well, I haven't used my Best Buy card in 40 years since I had a cassette deck. And I no longer need a Case Logic folder every year to put my new CDs in. So what am I going to Best Buy for? It's cheaper to buy the computer at Costco. I'm like, but look, go buy a screen protector, go buy a charger, go buy anything once a year and keep asking for the limit increase because this is a card you're not going to use. Your utilization is always going to be below that like 2% mark.
right. That that is it was a magic moment when you taught me that. And I've shared this literally with hundreds of people. And they look at me like I have three heads, and I tell them just it's not my advice, it's an expert's advice. Just do it. Let's shift gears to business owners for a minute.
Real quick though,
So
can I
yeah,
just because you are reiterating my advice, can I go ahead and up your game and give you the follow-up part to it?
absolutely.
You're going to like this one. Um, is this when you're paying your bill, when you're paying it off in full every month, start being aware of your statement cycle close date, not your due date, your statement cycle close date. This is going to be on the PDF version of any bill you have. And it's going to be either worded as statement cycle close date, statement ending date, or it'll just give you a date range for your statements. Okay, here's why this is crucial. Whatever the balance is on that day, not on the due date, but on that day, is what will report to credit until the next statement cycle close date. Whatever the ownership is and whatever the status is what will report through the next cycle. So let's just say I love my Marriott card. I'm a Marriott diehard. So let's say I plan the most epic, wonderful, amazing trip for me and my family, and I put it all on the Marriott card. If I want my computer to show, as far as my score, the very next month that I didn't touch it, I'm going to want to pay it the business day before the statement cycle close date. And the business date is important. So, like, think about July 4th. If July 4th was on a Monday, the business day I would tell people to pay is either on Thursday or Friday before to make sure that they always show that balance and it has time in the computer system. And then just don't use that particular card until the day after the statement closing date. And that way you can trick the computer, put on all the lovely makeup, and be good to go.
Okay. All right. I'm just taking notes because paper tends to hold things better than my brain does, Alex. Okay, got it. All right, shift into a business owner. All right, because let's face it, businesses are the lifeblood. 70% of the economy is small business. And for entrepreneurs, it's basically their life, right? And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of people in that category like to think that, well, there's my business over there and this is my personal over here. They don't really realize that their personal credit is actually tied to their company's success. What's one thing that entrepreneurs should do before they even think about applying for business funding?
It's kind of a generalized one thing. It's not a
Okay.
just one thing. It's a one A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That they
Okay.
should make sure that their business is correctly structured to be viewed as a business. And this is
Okay.
not IRS standards. This is not per CPA standards. This is solely based on how is a bank going to define them as as a entity. So what I mean by that, do you have a phone number that is owned by the business? Do you have an address that is not your home address? Does that address, phone number, email that matches the domain all match whatever the Secretary of State registration is? How do we take all of these components to build the correct initial structure and correct foundation that it can withhold anything?
Interesting. So is it better that they have a separate address and a separate number, or is it not?
Even if it is not truly something that they're officing out of. There are so many remote suites, share workspaces that when you Google them, you've got this beautiful high rise. That's what we're looking for from a bankability standpoint. Same thing with the phone number. Cool. You want to use your same phone number for everything? I've had my same cell phone number for over 30 years, but I also own 5 other numbers for my business, for everything else that all roll to me. Here's where else that's
Interesting.
cool. It gets really fun cool too, because now if I want to sell my business, this increases the valuation of the business because these things are separate from me.
Right. You sell the business and it keeps the business number. Customers can still find that business, even though Alexandra is not part of that business anymore. So
The
it gives
Google
the
page,
bank some confidence that there's continuity after the sale.
not only that, but also the Google page doesn't get shut down. The Facebook page doesn't get shut down. We want everything to have its own entity, just like our kids. Like, okay, great. Our goal as parents, I was having this conversation with a friend last night, is our goal as parents, in my opinion, some of you guys might hate me for this, but is to empower them to be their own creative and successful individuals. It's not, if we happen to live vicariously through them a little bit, that's okay, but that's not the goal. Again,
No.
let's peel back the onion. It is to create a functional, substantial, giving human being that is contributing to society and can do it without needing to live in our basement.
I understand that. I used to when the kids were little, I told them, I said, um, we are not raising children. We are raising adults. We gave birth to children. So if you
I
don't
love
understand the lesson that we are trying to teach you at the moment, I just want you to remember that it is my responsibility to help you become a positively contributing member of our society that moves the ball forward in a positive way for mankind. And if you don't understand, well, just remember this lesson. We're not raising children, we're raising adults. And so I
that.
love that you clicked into that. Um, so a business owner should have a separate address and a separate number, and they can actually have that number forward into, say, your existing cell phone, so you're not carrying around all these different devices.
Back in like the 80s, like we needed our pagers and we needed change for the payphone and yeah, all the
Yep.
stuff.
Some of
Now,
us needed change for the payphone in the 70s.
I'm going to take this up a notch though too, because I feel
Okay.
like we can't just leave it there for business. We've got to also talk about what is the other mistake that many business owners make. The other mistake that business owners make is being too short-sighted. They're like, I need the vehicle, I need the materials, I need the marketing. And they would rather put that either on personal credit or on personal credit cards without thinking 2 steps ahead. What do I mean by the 2 steps ahead? First step ahead that I mean is, what is your exit plan with this business? What is your strategy with this business? What does all of
Mm.
that look like? Second step ahead is, what do I personally want to do and what am I personally willing to risk? I don't remember the exact statistic, but I know that it's over 70% of all small businesses fail in the first 5 years. So here's the question, and this will be like kind of almost the mic drop question. If I know that my chances of failure exist, and if I'm going to go, I believe it's Michael Jordan that said it, that I'm going to fail again and again and again till I succeed, then do I want to jeopardize my retirement account my equity in my home, my ability to care for my day-to-day life in the context of that failure? Or do I want to ensure and pre-position myself that if I do fail, then the only thing that fails is this one entity, not me and my world being taken down with it.
Okay. Very, very, very sound advice right there. Silo yourself away from the business so that if one fails, the other can still rise again without going through all of the machinations to repair credit and start over. So, no, that's gold right there for everybody listening. And that's a mistake that I think most business owners make because most of them just go in as Schedule C, sole proprietor. It's all me, blah blah blah, and they don't take the time to insulate themselves from a legal standpoint, from a financial standpoint, and it comes with repercussions. And especially when, as you mentioned, 70 something percent don't make it 5 years. I can tell you in real estate, I think it's 85% fail in the first year and 90% in the second year. So it's an important thing. Let's do this.
But you said it really apropos there too, is that what is this business? I think
Mm,
that even in real estate, there are too many people that think, oh, I'm just starting up. Oh, I'm going to sell this amazing hair care product or makeup product or whatever else it is. I'm not really a business. And I'm going to
mm,
say that that is another huge pitfall. I'm not going to call it a mistake. I'm going to call it a pitfall is people that actually end up growing these huge, amazing, successful businesses, but that started calling themselves a hobby or whatever and not
mm.
putting that framework in place day one. How much headache and heartache and money they could have saved, how much easier their taxes and a potential IRS audit would have been if they would have just started it out day one.
And by the way, for all the realtors out there, and Alex doesn't know the question I'm going to ask, but I know she'll know the answer. Is there a glaring defining reason why somebody as a realtor should be an S corp versus an LLC? And I guess the better question is one truly better than the other, or does it depend?
I'm going to say it depends.
Okay.
I love the protection of an S corp. I personally have always done S corps for a multitude of reasons, both tax as well as personal preservation. And for me, the way that I've been taught, and this may be inaccurate, but anything that it functions under a corporate categorization, so to speak, is going to be easier to pass down, do transact with, and to be able to restructure if needed.
Okay. It's a great answer. Great answer.
I'm
Well,
like,
it does. I
ooh,
mean, it depends. It really does depend. Which is probably why I created an S corp for mine, because I really value that protection. It's a lot more accounting in terms of a headache, but I really do like that protection. So obviously, shifting gears, you help people repair and optimize their credit, and that's probably more of what a lot of people think about, especially young people just getting started. Or maybe they're more seasoned in life. Maybe they're coming out of a divorce. Maybe they're a widow or a widower, and they think it's too late. What's a common myth about credit or a mistake that you wish everybody understood before it hurts them?
believing the internet.
Great answer.
Believing the internet. Like, if I had to choose, what is the number one thing that with every person I've ever talked to, I've had to say, whoa, stop. You're close, but you're wrong. It's the internet.
Kind of like going to WebMD. You go to WebMD, you're going to die of one of 37 things in the next 10 minutes if you don't do something, right? And so trusting the internet maybe not be the best idea. When people go to the internet and they're asking different, credit remedies or how do I do this or whatever it is, or buying an app, no offense, Credit Karma, um, what are the mistakes that the internet are telling them to do?
Love that you brought up Credit Karma. I'm a huge fan of knowing where your world stands. Great. You should know your bank account balance. You should know your debt. You should know the tools and resources you have available to you, including your credit leverage opportunity. However, who do you want to listen to? And what is the ulterior motive behind it? One of my little favorite expressions is, if we're ever talking about something not making sense, follow the dollars, because everything's dollars and cents.
Hmm.
um, and with that, I tell people all the time, you don't really need to monitor. I get it. Like, I'm sure 20 people just heard that right now, and they're like, you want me to what? Cancel the monitoring. Don't pay for the monitoring. I'm a Russian Jewish mother. Save money, please. Please save money. You don't need to monitor. 99% of the time, you can have your credit locked. Freeze your credit for free. And especially if you have kiddos, especially if you're going through a divorce, especially if anybody has access to your social or your business tax ID or any of your data, which I guarantee at least 10 people have for every single one of us, whether it's our accountant, our
Hmm.
spouse, our parent, our insurance agent, somebody has all of your stuff somewhere. So freeze your credit. Guess what? It's free. Go on Experian.com, go on TransUnion.com, go on Equifax.com. Freeze yours and your children's credit. Freeze it the minute they get a social security number at 1 month old, all the way until they turn at least 17. For ourselves, do the same thing. Now, people are like, but wait, what if someone hacks my credit cards? Here's the free answer to that. This is what I've done with myself, with my 19-year-old daughter. This is what I believe in. I personally am one of those people that has over 30 credit cards, but I only use one on a regular basis. I have a second one that I use on a pretty frequent basis. So every single one of the 28 other cards has a daily spending limit set at $20. It also has a text alert set at $20. So somebody tries to use my card, replicate my card, anything, guess what? Just like we've got some pinging going on that I can't control for some reason. My phone pings me. No big deal. It goes a million times a day, anyways, and it tells me my card was swiped for $20. If it clears, it's $20. It's much easier to fight than anything else. But also, it can't get swiped again because my daily spending limit is hit. So, no big deal.
Mm.
But if I want to use that card, I log in to whatever bank it is, I raise the limit for that day, or I make them call me for an authorization. It's much more efficient, in my opinion, than constantly monitoring. Because here's why. And I did this very intentionally so that I could speak intelligently to it. I set up Credit Karma, Experian.com, and my FICO. I like my FICO personally. If anybody out here is asking, where do I look at my credit and where do I do it a couple times a year or whatever else, myfico.com. The reason I like it is it shows you all 70 plus variations of your score. It is the priciest, but it also is going to solicit you the least often. They don't resell your data.
Mm.
They're just more concise. That answer might change a year from now.
Sure.
With Credit Karma, when I logged in daily, I didn't get very many alerts. And when I logged in daily, there was all these banner ads and shiny things that I could click on. Guess what? That's how they make their money. They're
Yep.
not making their money by giving me the report. They're giving me their money from all of these other things. So what does that actually look like? That means that they're trying to sell me. And that means that they have to still pay for my report, for customer service reps, for the website. The minute I stopped logging in daily, the minute I erased the app, I started getting alerts 2 times a day in my email. Nothing had happened. Your score may have changed. You may want to log in. We think your information was on the dark web
Mm,
because they can't sell me if they're not in front of me.
that's
Ex
right. It's kind of like, did you see The Social Dilemma, the movie?
Yes. Yes.
Where basically, Facebook, if you haven't been there in a while, they like poke you. It's like,
Yes.
hey, and they just want your eyeballs. It's actually that was another tip you gave me about 10 years ago, which was to freeze my credit, which I did, and on all three of the credit reporting agencies. And on three different occasions, I have gone to buy a car and been denied, only to, and by the way, it was not a traumatic moment. I just looked at him like, what do you mean I'm denied? I've got an 820 credit score. And like, well, we can't access. Oh, it's frozen. Right. And it literally took, I don't know, 2 minutes to unfreeze it. And that's like the time to bring up my phone, log in, boom, boom. But the peace of mind of knowing that it's frozen, that nobody's going to be able to run my credit without me knowing and granting them access is priceless. So, yes, it takes an extra 2 minutes to log in and unfreeze, but the peace of mind that comes every single day, 365 days a year, knowing that somebody's not going to be running my credit without my approval is worth its weight. It really is. Um, okay. For someone that's out there listening and they're feeling stuck or they're embarrassed about their credit, okay? Because there's a lot of people out there, and I think the number's probably rising by the day when I look at 60-day delinquencies on car loans, when I look at the fact that I think 18 months ago we went over $1 trillion of credit card debt in the country. I think that now equates to about 1,200,000, and if I'm not mistaken, that's somewhere in the range of like $8,000 or $9,000 per household at 24% interest. Scares the bejesus out of me to think where our country's going. So there's going to be people out there listening right now that are a little embarrassed about their credit score. They don't want to talk about it, but they need to talk about it to somebody. What's the first step that they can take today to start to turn things around? Obviously, my advice of a first step would be to call you. But the second step after calling you, what would that look like? What's the second step, and what's the credit audit assessment? What does that do?
Okay. Also, don't forget about the 5.2 million people just 2 months ago that got hit with 90 and 120-day lates on student loans that they didn't even know either still existed or came out of deferral.
Wow.
Yeah. Just boom, blindsided people with 800 credit scores, never been late on anything. But we finally, 5 years plus later, came out of COVID deferral and they skipped the 30-day lates. They skipped the 60-day lates. They went straight to 90 and 120, which, by the way, is inaccurate, illegal reporting. So, therefore, it makes it very easy to fight.
Okay, good.
As far as a credit audit and as far as what can people do on their own, I'm going to answer that from both perspectives. If somebody just wants to truly deal with it on their own, be clear on your goals and figure out what your goals need from you. If your goal is just to buy a car and all you care is that it's a functioning car, worry about your budget and get a car. Don't worry about the interest rate. Give yourself grace. Give yourself
Mhm.
permission. Maybe like that's the best advice I can actually give is how much grace and forgiveness and space do we give ourselves in humanity? And I think it's too little too often
They're beating themselves up.
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, it's unfortunate and it's unpleasant. Nobody's going to take you to the guillotine. You're not going to the gas chamber. The sun will come up tomorrow. And it,
Well,
like you
and
said,
it's not,
depends on
you're
what
not
they
wearing
want.
it on your forehead. You don't have to wear it on your forehead. Nobody knows your credit score. You can like
Yeah.
tuck that in your pocket and still carry your shiny designer bag and nobody needs to know. And that's okay. I think that we've reached a point in society where what we think people know, what we think people are going to judge us for going back to that entire conversation about perception and reputation. It's so skewed. If you
Mm,
don't need anything financially, maybe your credit doesn't matter right now. If you are
mhm.
independently wealthy trust fund child, great, more power to you.
Yeah.
Just be aware of your budget, maybe, or maybe
Yeah,
don't
I was
have.
just gonna say at that point, cash really is king, and I don't need credit if I have enough cash, right? It's okay.
Yeah. And
Um,
so
okay,
for people that are going through it, that are like really living in it, it's let's get clear about what we need, why we need it, who is the best person to support us in getting it, when do we need it, and where can we find it? Who, what, where, when, why?
no, I love how you brought that all the way back to the very beginning, which was what do you want to accomplish? And taking it all the way back to the beginning, before we wrap up here, one of the things that we started by talking about is that if you don't have credit and you're not a trust funder with unlimited means, then you need to work on your credit. It's a very, very important tool for you to leverage to create the life that you really want. So, for most of America, they probably don't have the credit score that they need in order to get to the goals that they want. How do they get a hold of Alexandra Erlich? How do they set a time with you? And do you have something that you can offer them or share them on this podcast if they reference this?
Absolutely. So, couple things. You can reach me on any social network. I have a YouTube channel, which is just Alexandra Erlich, Erlich. I can be reached on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as on my website. I have a couple different links, and I'm sure that we'll post them here, as well as my cell phone. I usually will send that to voicemail unless it is a scheduled call so that I can always respond back with a calendar link. My calendar
That's
is easily
awesome.
accessible on all those things as well. So, what we
So
are
go ahead.
special for you is I'm offering two things. If somebody just needs a quick conversation, like let's figure out where I'm at, I am offering a 30-minute life assessment, so to speak. This is not going to be necessarily a comprehensive credit report review. This will just be a quick chat of, do you need anything? Do you know how to set your goals? Do you know how to determine your goals? Or are you just so swimming in debt that you need me to break out the permission wand and say, yep, bankruptcy's okay? Because it's not that scarlet letter. And if those are the case, then we're doing 30 minutes at no cost whatsoever. And then for a comprehensive strategy plan, whether that involves attorneys, whether that involves looking at next steps and paying down debts, whether that's strategically opening the right debts, I usually am doing that 1 hour for 350. For anybody coming through from this podcast, we are doing 2 hours at the 350.
That is a
Like,
huge, huge bargain. I mean,
yeah,
I
and it
think
is
about what you're going to be able to open up somebody's life to. For somebody to get a 2 hour assessment, audit, game plan, referrals to other professionals to execute the plan that you put in place for $350. Look, whoever's out there listening right now, if you are in a position where you're not sure where to go, you're feeling stuck, you feel like I need help, but I don't know who to call. Alexander Erlich is going to take the time for 2 hours. $350, I can promise you, a year from now, you won't even think about the $350 based on what she's going to do for you and your family in pursuit of that goal. You're not going to get to that goal by yourself. You need a pro to help you. And Alexander is the person that can get you out of wherever you are and put in place the plan and bring in the professionals that will help execute that plan to get you the life that you really want. I've seen it happen. Do yourself a favor. Give Alexander a call. Alexander, share your number with people if you would.
303-668-0300.
All right, just
303-668-0300. And thanks, Wade, too, because here's the other thing is, might we find in this conversation that you want my services for a million other things? Absolutely. The key here, though, is you don't know where you're starting. If you've been given
Mm.
insurance advice, you probably shop your car insurance every other year, at least every 5 years. You probably shop for a different laundry detergent or for where you should be getting medical care on a regular basis. Why wouldn't you do the same thing with your finances? This isn't about
Huge.
investing. This isn't about life insurance. This isn't about getting sold on things. It's about making sure that everything that you already have in your world is working for you and not creating another full time job. How many of our cards are truly giving us back all of the things based on the way we spend? The way we spend when our children are toddlers, the way we spend when we're retired is radically different. So we should be
Mm.
making the same shifts the same way we would in all of the other areas that our parents told us to and that society has told us to, but never has mentioned on the credit side.
You really bring up something that is critical, and I want everybody to listen. And that is when you think about your financial house, there are three main pillars, and we've had guests that address these in different areas. And one is the investment side. How am I going to make things grow? Then we have the liability side, where we have had specialists for insurance and mortgage, where they really tout themselves not as a mortgage advisor, but as a liability specialist. So you have an asset specialist, you have a liability specialist. And with Alexandra, what you're really getting is how do I bolster who I am so that I can then leverage my asset manager and my liability manager to be the most effective? Because they can't do the best work they do unless Alexander's going to help you be in a position so that they can help you. Does that make sense?
Perfectly. You did it awesome.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, credit is boring. Credit isn't sexy. But if you don't have it, it can rank right up there with oxygen. So if you are in a position where you're not sure or you'd like to be in a better position, do yourself a favor. Give Alexandra a call at 303-668-0300. Start on your path to the life that you really want today. I promise you, not only is she going to make a huge impact, but you're going to enjoy meeting with her and talking to her because she is just an overall caring, wonderful person. I've known her for over a decade, and I can say that. So, Alexander, thank you for being with us here today on Green and Growing.
Thank you so much, Wade, for having me. And I personally thought you were going to say that I do make credit fun and sexy, but
I don't
that's
know
a
that if anybody can, you can. How's that?
love it.
Well,
Thank you. And I'm
you
just so
bet.
grateful to be here with you and get to catch up and get to be available and accessible because this really shouldn't be a scary topic. It's not about budget. It's not about any of those yucky things that we want to perceive. It really can be the catalyst to every single dream imaginable.
I love that. That's a great wrap up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this episode of Green and Growing. If this episode sparked something in you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen. Stay connected with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more inspiration and exclusive content. And remember, life is about progress, not perfection. Cheers to Green and Growing, and we're going to see you in the next episode. Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Green and Growing. I'm your host, Wade Perry of the Perry Properties Group at EXP. Welcome,